I love it. Thank you so much, Scott. Now, we're heading down here. There's kind of some stuff going on here. Very, very excited. This next person I'm excited to introduce you to, she is something. I have to tell you, she got married at 50 for the first time, all right? That's just to start with, okay? But first of all, let me just tease you here a little bit. The Bellevue Chamber of Commerce is also a sponsor. I've mentioned 2 or 3 already. Now we're talking about the Bellevue Chamber of Commerce. Jim Risto, of course, is the executive director down there. They're doing a lot of things. Bellevue is really redefining itself. They've grown fast for 20 years. Now they're at that kind of stage where they're saying, well, hey, what do we want to be here? How do we want to optimize and maximize these lots and industrial tracts and all these different things? Obviously, they've got Fort Crook Road. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do with that. So the Bellevue Chamber is in the middle of all these nitty-gritty issues. They've got new leadership, and we are so grateful for having them help us sponsor, along with the 2 others, sponsor Success Summit. So we thank the Bellevue Chamber very, very sincerely. Now, Janyne Peek-Emsick, Dr. Janyne Peek-Emsick comes from a theological background. She's sociological. There is a university in war-torn Congo, I want to say this correctly, the Congo, that asked her to help them rewrite and redefine their university mission and constitution. This is an amazing breadth. She's here in Omaha. She came from Chicago. She's here in Omaha. She's newly married now. So let's give her an extra round of applause for Dr. Janyne Peek-Emsick. Janyne. I think that's great. I think that's great. You knew I was going to screw something up, right? My ebullience was overwhelming my authenticity and my accuracy or whatever.
Your exuberance is delightful. Lynn, so.
Well, we've got a great group of people here.
Yeah,
It's fun to be with them and share energy.
Yeah.
And that's all this is. You know, you are involved. You're one of the first people I know that uses the word transformation and doesn't just flip it out. I mean, you really use that word as if you're transforming human beings and organizations. Tell me a little bit about how that word really relates to what we're doing today.
You know, it's interesting. When I started my research for my Ph.D., I don't know, in the late 90s, there was a quote I was introduced to by a guy named Kurt Lewin, and he said, "To know and not do is to not yet know." That knowledge without action is really not knowing. And that was built upon, there's some research by a guy named Chris Argyris out of Harvard Business School, who took a look at graduates of the Harvard Business School and their initial jobs working with prestigious consulting firms and large organizations, and what happened when something went wrong. And it's interesting, if you think about Harvard MBA students, on the continuum of megahertz in their brains, you're going to put them where? Low or high? High, right? Yeah. And so these are really smart people. And when something goes wrong on their gig, on their project, they blame the stupid customer, the incompetent team members, the IT system that failed. And it's always someone else's fault because they knew better themselves. And they had learned the best on what did it take to be a high-powered team? What did it take to build a high-powered team? To empower, to lead in a way that developed. They'd read all of the books, and they couldn't practice it. And
was it arrogance, or was it lack of knowledge about who they really were, what they had and what they didn't have inside? I mean, let's just really understand this. What's going on? Have they got, their mind is so full of theory that they don't know how to actually behave under extreme circumstances? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's because we have a tendency to assume that what we know is what we do.
And that's not true at all.
What we've read is what we practice. We make a New Year's resolution.
Well, we know we don't keep those.
Right.
We know we don't keep those.
That is the nature of being human. And so the article he wrote on this was teaching smart people how to learn. The smarter you are, the harder it is to actually learn in life, which is actually quite an interesting concept. And so in my work in organizations, as a leadership consultant, my work has been to inspire organizations around the world to walk their talk one leader at a time. That organizations don't change, organizations don't transform unless the aggregate of the individual leaders are actually practicing what they preach, or aligned with the vision and values. And those of you who have been around a while remember that phase corporations went through when the executive team went off and created this vision statement and these corporate values, and there'd be a big old plaque on the wall. You'd show up.
But they didn't go to Outward Bound.
Yeah,
I don't think they went. They didn't go to
actually,
Outward Bound.
I know there
Did
were.
they?
Yep,
All
I
right,
worked
there were
with some
of those.
executives who did the Outward
Okay.
Bound thing and talked
But they
about
came back
the trust
transformed.
exercise, right? Falling back onto your. Yep, yeah. So, and if you were lucky, they actually invested in little laminated cards that you could put in your pocket or on the back of your ID badge that had the vision and values. And I like to go to the front line of an organization and say, what difference does this vision and value make for you in your job, in your life? And if they don't say it breathes life into what they're doing, it means that it's a plaque.
Yeah, yeah.
And here's the kicker. Those things don't work in an organization unless the individual leaders' vision and values, their dreams, are aligned with the organizational dreams.
Well, let's talk about those dreams, because, a lot of people that are, when they reach that senior level, they're so conditioned to give up their dreams. And dreams are, they have to rationalize and benchmarks and justify and tweak and spreadsheets and so on. How does dreaming fit into that normal modus operandi?
I believe we're designed to dream. And my best example of this is, think about kids. You ask them, what do they want to be when they grow up? And do they say, I want to just have a job and get a paycheck and go home? No,
Sure.
they want to win the Heisman Trophy. They want to get the award.
They're bold and grandiose.
Bold dreams.
Yes.
And my favorite example of this is my cousin David. He was about 5 at the time when I was in middle school, and we were up in Minnesota for a family reunion kind of thing. And my dad's about to take a picture of his family. And all of a sudden, David, he gets down in this 3-point stance. And he's looking up at my dad with the camera. And my dad goes, David, what are you doing? And he goes, when I grow up, I'm going to be a football player. Literally like that. Now, here's the deal. David still talks like that. He's a rocket scientist.
He's a rocket scientist.
He's a rocket
That's the
scientist. And he continues to dream. So he has a wonderful career leading scientists who create solid fuel for shuttles and combustion. But he wants to be a musician and a performer and he invests time in that dream. Something happens. There's like this dream snatcher that comes along for us somewhere, once we know how to dream when we fall in love, right? We dream about what the future's going to look like. We know how to dream when a child is born, and you dream about the future of that child. We know how to dream when we buy a home and what might happen in that home. But
Janyne,
something happens, and it all fizzles out, and a snatcher comes, and we just start doing what's in front of our toes to get through life on a day-to-day basis.
And at the time, it feels like the practical and appropriate thing to do, but 20 or 30 years later, we felt like we chopped up something.
We get the
implicit
life.
to
Yeah,
who
we get the
really
life
are.
sucked out of us.
Absolutely. Well, so you help leaders recapture the dream and then infuse the organization with the boss's dream again? Is that kind of what it is? Or
the process that I use is generally it's about working with an executive team and helping them articulate a shared vision for the organization, and then also working with the individual executives about what their dream is. And sometimes it results in them leaving the organization.
Yeah, yeah.
And realizing, gosh, I'm not in sync. And I brought a little prop. You're wondering what my little purple tape is.
Yeah, I was
my
wondering,
favorite
purple
color.
in particular.
Yeah. If the purple side of this tape is your vision, it's what you aspire towards. It's your dream. And this sticky piece on the other side that's kind of white is what you do on a day-to-day basis. It's your walk. Oftentimes, our talk, our aspirations, and our walk are just like this. They're two parallel conversations, and we're never saying, what am I doing today that makes a difference with where I dream to be tomorrow? And oftentimes that results in losing the dream because we're doing good stuff, but we've neglected to lift the eyes of our hearts towards something that's bigger and better. So I like to take the model and I create a Mobius out of this.
A Mobius?
A Mobius is like a 3D infinity symbol. And if you take a look at this, if I start on this purple side, and that's what I espouse, that's my dream and that's my vision, I can actually take my finger and trace the surface of this model and never leave it and continue to have a conversation and dialogue between what am I doing on a daily basis, what's my walk, and what's my dream. And so that's the process that I like to engage, so that we're always taking a look at, what are my leadership behaviors? How am I perceived by the people that I am leading on a day-to-day basis?
Yep.
How does that align with who I aspire to be as a leader, or who I aspire to be as a leader of this corporation with these vision and
So that you
values?
recapture that passion that you left behind.
Yeah.
When you were 5, 10, 15 years old.
Yeah, people are tired. We talked about it earlier, that with the recession, I've never seen so many executives that are doing the work of individual contributors. That and that means that they're doing the work that's got to get done now, instead of shaping the culture and transforming with leadership.
That is so true. They're not strategic. They don't have
No
the
time,
resources.
no budget. Yeah,
Everybody has to
yeah.
focus on getting it out
Yeah.
the door, and that's pretty much
It's a culture killer. It's a,
It really is. Janyne, I know we're going to wrap up here, but I know that
Yeah.
you're also an entrepreneur with your husband, and
Yeah.
you're running an architectural firm. You're
Yeah.
managing partner here in Omaha for that. Are you walking your talk?
Yeah, so that's been fascinating. A year and a half ago, my husband and I launched Emsick Architects, a commercial architecture firm here in town, and we are growing gangbusters.
Doing great.
Yeah, we're just having a blast.
Got the vision and the values straight.
Yeah, it's a whole lot easier to talk about aligning your practices with your vision
It really
than it is to
is.
do it on a daily basis. And I'm going to be a lot easier on the folks that I'm coaching in this report. But learning to walk my own talk, and it's really the opportunity to help build a company, instead of helping another company, help build a company that practices vision and values, that
In the
makes a
context
difference
of
in the life,
architecture.
in the context of architecture, that we're building is just so exciting and very, very rewarding.
Now you know
So-
if it really works, right?
Yeah,
I have a feeling it is. Thank
Proof
you,
is in the
Janyne.
pudding. Thanks so
Janyne
much, Lynn.
Peek-Emsick, everybody. An entrepreneur and a management consultant. Great job. Thank you so much, dear. Thank you so much.